What's up everyone, how's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. So this is going to be the second part of our epic 6800K slash GTX 1080 water-cooled build. And here we're going to focus on specifically the performance results out of this PC gaming rig right over here. So when it comes to the overclock, we didn't really go too crazy. The copy of the 6800K that I have really can't go past 4.4 gigahertz at 1.4 volts. But at these current settings, I'm definitely very confident that we can maintain this overclock for a long period of time, and that's one of the big advantages that you're going to have with a custom water cooling loop. At idle, you're only looking at about 25 degrees C, which is very cool, and at 100% load, after about 45 minutes of prime 95, the peak temperature was around 74 degrees C, and on average, it hovered around 68 degrees C for most of that time. Now with our water cooling rig and our overclock, we're getting significant performance bumps from the stock frequency. So if you look at the Geekbench 3 benchmark result, as you can see over here, we're getting over 24,000 points on the multi-core side and a solid 4,077 points on the single threaded performance. And you can see based on the stock frequency settings, it's definitely a decent performance bump from the overclock and the water cool setup. And the same thing is kind of mirrored on the Cinebench R15 benchmark, where we're getting over 1,300 points on the 4.4 gigahertz overclock, and the stock frequency scores around 1,100 points. Now, in addition to that, one of the big highlights of this system is definitely the read and write performance. Thanks to the Samsung 950 Pro M.2 PCI Express SSD, we're getting well over excess of 2,500 megabytes a second in terms of read performance and 1,500 megabytes per second in terms of write. So with these kind of performance levels, everything's going to be really fluid and really dynamic. Certainly your applications will load up faster, as well as your boot time will definitely decrease. Now, one of the big advantages of having a water cool setup is that you typically don't need a lot of fans. Now, we have four 120 millimeter fans on just the radiator. There's no fans for the GPU. There's no fans for the CPU. So we can dictate the RPM speed. And if we want a more quieter setup, we can lower the RPM and it will decrease the overall noise factor if you want a really quiet system. And even with this open frame design of our thermal take case, our maximum acoustic noise level doesn't go beyond 38 decibels, even at full gaming load, or even if you're editing videos or photos, anything intense. With a water cool setup, pretty much your temperature is consistent across all areas of the loop. So whether you're running your GPU hot or your CPU hot, the temperatures should be fairly similar. And even at full gaming load, the temperature on average is about 55 degrees C in the loop itself, with the GPU mainly being taxed at the highest level. And obviously the CPU comes into play when you're playing different games. And obviously we discussed the maximum thermal capacity of our CPU performance earlier on. So one of the great advantages of a full-on water cool setup like this is that you don't have to really make a system very loud in order to make it perform right. Now, when it comes to the graphical performance of this PC, we did do a little bit of overclocking on our GTX 1080, not by a huge factor since we can't really control the voltage at a higher level too much. So the boost frequency is around 1,700 megahertz on the stock GTX 1080s. We push it to around 2,000 megahertz, so not a crazy overclock, but this is going to give us excellent stability and pretty good thermal dynamics based on our initial testing right now. And we're just going to take a look at the side-by-side advantage that you get with our overclock setting. The first thing we're going to take a look at is synthetic benchmark, the TimeSpy DX12 3D Mark Vantage benchmark. As you can see over here, a slight bump in performance with our overclock setting, getting around 7703 versus the stock frequencies on our 1080 from MSI gets around 7393. Now, our overclock also yields a slightly better performance when it comes to the Unigine Valley benchmark. We're getting about 107.2 average frames per second on that benchmark, and in the same scenario, just with the stock frequencies, we're getting about 101.4 average FPS. Now what we're going to do is run through a couple of different DirectX 11 and 12 titles and we're going to again show you guys the performance both at the 1080p and at the 4K setting, so you have a good idea in terms of how this system performs at those different types of resolutions. So let's get right into it. Now, in summary, on average, you get about 8 to 10% performance bump with our overclock setting, and obviously with our water cool setup, things run a lot more efficiently and at lower temperatures, which is definitely going to increase overall performance and the longevity of all the components that you're using in your PC. That's one of the great things about a water cool setup. And of course, you can probably get very similar performance if you're going to be cooling by air, but obviously your overall noise levels will increase, and it certainly won't look as cool as something like what we have over here with all the hard tubing piping going on. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Really helps us out tremendously. Check out the links in the description down below for all the detailed information about the PC specs. And if you haven't watched our build guide of how we created this PC, definitely do so and watch part 1. But really, on that, guys, that's really it. Thanks again for your support. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later. Take care.